Marion McIntosh. He's going to come up and he's going to have a word for you. And believe me when I say he would be our draft pick, he would be our #1. Mr. McIntosh, come up, please.
Thank you for extending the opportunity for me to come speak to everyone tonight, and thank you all for being here. Young brother Canon Jones, I didn't know the young man, but I have a brother and a sister that go to Tuskegee, so naturally when I heard that there was a murder, genuinely I was concerned, and I called to see where they were and to make sure that they were all right. But this was a most unfortunate tragedy. Canon Jones, I understand he was 18 years old, from California, a freshman here at Tuskegee University. I didn't know the young man, but I imagine that he knew many of you, and he probably ate at the chicken coop with you, or probably stood in line at the financial aid office with you. He might have been on Facebook or MySpace with you, probably ate in the calf with you, or sung in the choir with you. But unfortunately, his life was taken in the most useless manner. And for what? What could he have possibly had that would cause someone to want to take his life? Maybe he had on a nice watch, or maybe he had an iPod or a cell phone or a nice pair of shoes, but was it worth his life? And which leads me to the question, how much is black blood worth? You see, we've had a lot of black blood spilled already. Throughout the years, our ancestors paid the price so that we may have a better opportunity in 2007. You see, our blood has already been spilled in enormous quantities. Our ancestors, during the Middle Passage, only the strong survived, but if anything was wrong, if they had any diseases or if anything was wrong, they were thrown overboard. They say that sharks swam behind the boats waiting for our ancestors to be thrown overboard. How much is black blood worth? Our civil rights leaders, one shot in the neck at a motel in Memphis, one shot up at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem. How much is black blood worth? 4 little girls in Sunday school blown up. And for what? How much is black blood worth? You see, our ancestors have died in enormous quantities for our freedom, for our equality, for our right to vote, so that we would have the opportunities that we have today. So why is it that in 2007, a black man can't even walk to the store without getting shot up? How much is black blood worth? You see, we've turned the cheek and we've looked the other way for far too long. We said that when it was the gangbangers and the drug dealers, we said, well, that was all right. They living the wrong way anyway. Half-hearted investigations into murders. Who cares? They living wrong anyway, right? But when a college student dies, one of us, someone trying to do something positive with his life, coming to school to get an education, not on the street corners selling drugs, not out gang banging, but going to class, English 101, algebra, Spanish, whatever. So now why is it that in 2007 we allow something like this to happen? See, we've gotten too comfortable. You know, we've gotten too complacent after everything that our ancestors have sacrificed for, bled for. Canon Jones murdered in a black community. It's a shame that in 1967, the black community is the safest place for a black man to be. But in 2007, the black community could be one of the most dangerous places for a black man to be. I don't know about you, but I think there's something wrong with that. And while we are so comfortable in 2007, comfortable enough to allow black folk to kill other black folk, I got news for you. There are still some adversity and some external factors for us to fight without us killing one another. You see, while we are co-conspirators in our own destruction, there's still some external factors out there. There's racism and discrimination still out there. There's inadequate health care and education still out there. There's HIV and AIDS still out there. There's strokes and high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease still out there. There's high black infant mortality rate still out there. There's black child left behind still out there. There's presidents telling the Supreme Court that we don't need affirmative action still out there. There is still a battle for us as black people to fight. So we don't need to be fighting each other. We don't need to be killing each other. But unfortunately, there's still an internal factor. We killing ourselves. I hear the young men talking about they left California to get away from all that. What about, instead of getting out the hood, why not make the hood not such a bad place? See, there was a time where a community raised a child. There was a time where if you needed to borrow some eggs or some sugar, you could go next door. So now in 2007, what action do we need to take to stop the violence? See, stop the violence, that's a great idea. It sounds good when we get in front of microphones and podiums. It sounds good it looks good to wear a Stop the Violence t-shirt. But what do we do to change it? Do we get more guns? Do we all strap up, go into class? Do we all get a 9mm Glock to tote to class or when we walk somewhere? Do we get more police officers or do we get more security? Maybe some more police, maybe more security, but I don't think that everybody carrying guns is a good idea. But what we do, or what we need to do, is to give back to the black community. It shouldn't be, those are locals, or we TU students, or this, that, and the other. We all black folks. And we as a black community, we have always had the resources within the black community to take care of black people. You see, our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents talk about how they was on the farm and they didn't have much, but they had each other and they shared with one another. And they had a lot less financially than we have in 2007. But for some reason, it seems like their generation turned out a little bit better, or it seems that way. But see, we've always had the resources. And we have the resources in 2007. We as black Americans, we spend $22 billion on clothes. We spend $30 billion a year on cars. We spend $54 billion on food. We spend $14 billion a year on telephone service. We spend $110 billion on housing. We spend $5 billion on beverages, $10 billion a year on furniture and appliances, $17 billion on insurance, $6 billion on hair care, going to the barber shop and to the hair salon. And we only give $6 billion of our money to education. We only spend $18 billion on health care. And we only spend $7 billion giving back to our community. We have more education today than we've ever had. We have more bachelor's degrees and PhDs and master's degrees than we've ever had. We have more education, we have more money, we have more freedom than we ever had. So what do we do to stop the violence? Well, I challenge each and every one of you to give to your community. I know that sounds like a mediocre solution to our problem, but if the young men or the young man and woman that murdered Canon, if they had been mentored, if somebody cared enough to ask them how they were doing, if somebody tutored them, if somebody had them in a Sunday school class, if somebody took them on a YMCA trip, if somebody had some extracurricular activities with them, a lot of the benefits that we have all been blessed with and that we all have enjoyed, maybe they wouldn't have felt the need to shoot him for whatever reason. So I challenge you. We have a greater capacity and capability today to give back to our communities than ever. And if the students at Booker T. Washington Middle School, high school, or whatever need anything, they ought to have 2,420 black folk that they can call on. I'm not going to keep you, but thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless you.